The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. Glory to you, O Lord. Jesus said to his disciples, "Be sure of this. If the master of the house had known the hour when the thief was coming, he would not have let his house be broken into. You also must be prepared, for at an hour you do not expect the Son of Man will come." Then Peter said, "Lord, is this parable meant for us or for everyone?" And the Lord replied, "Who then is the faithful and prudent steward whom the master will put in charge of his servants to distribute the food allowance at the proper time? Blessed is that servant whom the master on arrival finds doing so. Truly I say to you, he will put him in charge of all his property. But if that servant says to himself, 'My master is delayed in coming,' and begins to beat the men servants and the maid servants, to eat and drink and get drunk, then that servant's master will come on an unexpected day and at an unknown hour, and will punish the servant severely and assign him a place with the unfaithful. That servant who knew his master's will, but did not make preparations nor act in accord with his will, shall be beaten severely. And the servant who was ignorant of his master's will, but acted in a way deserving of a severe beating, shall be beaten only lightly. Much will be required of the person entrusted with much, and still more will be demanded of the person entrusted with more." The Gospel of the Lord. Yeah, I guess the first question is, what is going on here? The parable that Jesus gives, talking about the servants and the master, actually he previews in the section immediately prior to this, and St. Peter then is asking him about that. So we get the rough sketch of it, and I get it. We don't want the repetition, as significant as that is. Yeah. So Jesus is when Jesus is using the image of a master and his servants, this is a very common image for God and Israel. And so this is why Peter then is asking him, what is this about us, or is this about the nation as a whole? And Jesus' answer is, yeah, it's about the nation as a whole, but then of course there's, say, your particular place in that mix, as it were. And I think both of those things are important for us to see and respond to. Yet Jesus here is talking about the time of the master's return. And by his own understanding, we see that Jesus believes the master to be returning to Israel, his people, in his own person and in his own mission. So this is the time of return. This is the time when account is to be made. This is the time when we see what have the servants been doing. Have they been faithful to what God has entrusted to them and has tasked them with? And of course we see then that Jesus' assessment of the scene, is that Israel as a whole has drifted from its responsibility, and try as he might to call them into new life, to embrace the vocation that was always theirs. He's not having great success turning the nation around. He's pulling people to himself, right? He has the beginnings of his kingdom movement are at hand, because he's pulling people to himself. He's renewing people so that they can live this way. They can live as a light to the nations. But he's not getting the nation turned around. And so there's this kind of clash that's coming on, right? Things are being brought to a head. The way of Jesus and the ways of the world interacting with the way that Israel had kind of settled into, which is a way of conflict with the world, a desire to be over and against the world, versus Jesus's renewed Israel vision that Israel would again be what God intended them to be, which is for the world, serving the world, for the world, giving light and life to the world, bringing God's love to life in the world. So the clash is coming, and it's hard to make out what the signs are that are being played out in front of them, because again, Jesus is calling, and it's not as though, here we see the master in the story beating servants. It's just like it's like the ones who knew what they should have been doing and were not doing it, those guys are beaten pretty heavily. But the ones who didn't know what they should have been doing but were still going along with the flow of this, well, they're beaten only lightly. Well, where's the third category? We don't want a beating at all, right? So, and of course, Jesus is not exactly, he's not running around beating people, right? So it's a bit confusing as to how this is all lining up, and how Jesus' exhortation is itself playing out. Now, he understands that, of course, the coming confrontation is most significantly advanced by his death on the cross. Yeah, this is a massive point of clash between here the ways of the errant ways of Israel and Jesus himself, like the errant ways of the world and Jesus himself. That's a big part of the clash. But Jesus also is incorporating that event into the events of 70 AD, around 70 AD, with the destruction of the temple, and of course the raising of Jerusalem. That is also God's judgment, and it is coming on. It is coming on quickly, which is why Jesus, in not desperation but real urgency, is calling people back to the way of God. His attempts to save, in fact, the nation or the people, God's chosen people, from the coming destruction that they are bringing on themselves. So he's pushing for it. And anyway, this is for us. It's significant in any number of ways, but the most important is that we take up that, we respond rather to that urgent call that Jesus is issuing to us. It's really not a matter of, it can be a matter that incorporates aesthetics, but it's not, religion is not a matter of aesthetics. Our following Jesus is not a matter of simply what looks good. Our following Jesus is not a therapeutic matter, right? It's not a matter of angling towards feeling good about ourselves. That's not it. It's an urgent call to prevent and to save us from ourselves and the culture of ourselves and selfishness and self-absorption and the like. It's urgent, and it makes a difference each and every day. We respond to him. No matter how we respond positively. This is massive effect in the life of the world when we respond positively to the call to follow Jesus, and massively in the negative when we choose not to. But the call is urgent, it matters, and he's issuing that call to us today. I was reading just this morning some quick little hits from Saint Jose Maria Escrivá, and he said that surrender for us, surrender is always about docility. So surrender includes docility, and the question is whether or not we actually are docile to Jesus. Are we because we're here to participate in this act of surrender, in this act of offering, right? Jesus is offering himself to his Father, and we are offering ourselves through and with and in him. We're caught up in this act of surrender. We are supposedly surrendering ourselves to God. At least the action of the liturgy is one of offering. It's one of surrender. And we should be actively participating in that act. That's why we're here. That's really why we're here. So we have this act of surrender, but are we living it? And we only live it by docility, which means that Jesus is always the center point of focus in our hearts and minds as we live the life of surrender. Right? We're surrendering to him, but it means that we have to be docile to him. So are we docile to his instruction? Are we docile to the call that he's issuing here to follow him? I mean, when we see much will be required of the person entrusted with much, my friends, we've received everything. More than anyone who's ever lived, we've received everything. What has been entrusted to us? Absolutely everything. We know what God's will is. We know what God's love looks like. It's in front of us every day we walk into the church, not only in the crucifix, but also here waiting for us in the tabernacle. Right? This how profound is the mercy of God. We've been entrusted with everything. And that means then that we have to live docility to Christ. And it's not just in like a general way, like a broad way, we're piecing it together for ourselves, don't really know what it means. No, he is making himself accessible to us so that we can ask him directly, what is it that you want of me here, Jesus? And then give me the strength to do it, because I probably won't be able to. Give me the strength to do what you want me to do, because it's not going to be easy, but it will be important. Right? And it will have me live into the life of eternal purpose that he is calling me to live into today.